My sister-in-law filmed my delivery without my consent, sold it for $60,000, and made me a meme. Now she's facing prison for her betrayal. Some years ago, my sister-in-law Ashley wanted to influence. 18,000 followers, poor interaction, requests family participation. I always refused. I like privacy, especially while pregnant. My explanation was clear. No birth, baby shower, or pregnancy footage. My spouse Ryan helped me pick a hospital without recording limitations. Ashley was sad, yet helpful. Your birth, your rules, she laughed. She even volunteered to wait outside during childbirth. My water broke at 1:30 a.m. Ryan contacted his family on Tuesday while we rushed to the hospital. Ashley came an hour later with coffee to keep everyone updated from the waiting room. The nurse encouraged Ryan to take a 5-minute break when transition labor left him pale and overwhelmed. I could barely speak through the pain when Ashley stepped in. "I'll stay with her," replied. Through contractions, Ashley held my hand and encouraged me. Gratitude came to me. When Ryan wanted a break, Ashley alternated. She witnessed me shouting, wailing, exposed, and pleading for an end. After our daughter Ava was born at 8 p.m., Ashley cried with us, took some photos we allowed, and embraced me like she was part of something special. 4 weeks later, my phone exploded. Missed calls, messages, updates. My stomach dropped as Mom inquired, "Saw Ashley's post?" She said she didn't film. I cried after Ashley's viral video of my sister-in-law's failed birth. She carried cameras in her handbag, coffee cup and blouse. A 20-hour documentary showed me in full view, crowning shots, angles Ryan hadn't seen, me sobbing that I wanted to die, screaming at Ryan that labor was his fault, the doctor discussing my third-degree tear in graphic detail, me defecating while pushing, and my body at its most vulnerable. Comments were cruel. Calling Ryan, I cried. Someone made a meme from my best moment. Vagina was meme. The worst wasn't embarrassment. She made almost $60,000 in 3 weeks selling unedited film to a birth fetish website for $39.99. I ran home. Be quiet. Ashley uploaded more film, and I couldn't stop watching. My postpartum sister-in-law doesn't know I'm recording. Breastfeeding agony videos. Bloody postpartum pads and garbage. Did you give Ashley permission for the documentary? Ryan slammed the door at home. I phoned a lawyer. Ryan's mother called. It's too late, I responded. Doc? It's everywhere, even on porn sites. Prime Media acquired a new program. You signed a release. A release signed the day I gave birth. I was stunned. Ashley handed me a clipboard during transition. Hospital needs this signed, she said. Pain-induced delirium. I signed blindly. Ryan called Ashley and put her on speaker. Just substance, she added. Dramatic, all give birth. You sold her vagina footage, he said. Educational material increasing awareness. She signed, she worked, binding. My lawyer confirmed. Just took the phone. Take it down or I swear, you can't ruin me. My nude body displayed on the hospital website, and people sent me DMs that night. I purchased your birth video. You were prettier pregnant. Stretch marks though. Yikes. My wife fainted watching you push. Too graphic. Ashley prepared a sad video about our success bullying. Her fans stated we were envious, rude and controlling. My principal contacted a week later. Parents saw tapes. I taught kindergarten. Ashley's act continued. She agreed to provide all birth mother footage for 2 years. Lawyer stated the situation. Although troublesome, the release form will take years to challenge. Her texts suggest you asked her to film. The lawyer scowled as Ryan added, "Get everything, our fame will increase." She emailed these while pressing. Tonight, local news said, proving she had your phone is possible, but difficult. A delivery room nurse stood out, and the hospital missed. I observed many concealed cameras. We're filing a joint lawsuit. Received call from unknown number. Is this Ava's mother? Producer at Netflix. We're doing a consent and social media abuse documentary. We want exclusive rights to your tale and deconstruct Prime Media's claim. I simply want the videos gone, I said. We can make that happen, but you need to see something first. He sent Ashley's private Instagram to start. At one point in her months-long staging, she grabbed me and forced me to labor. The producer remarked, "She's done this before." I gazed at the producer's email, which revealed Ashley's private Instagram site where she planned Project Birth for months, and the lines, "Slip her Pitocin during visit, make my hands shake so violently I nearly dropped." She drugged me to induce labor without consent to record it. Ryan reads over my shoulder and goes white before grabbing his car keys and saying he's going to Ashley's to confront her. I stop him at the door and call David Mitchell because charging their irate may hurt our legal case. Netflix's privacy attorney told us we can't contact Ashley because we require law enforcement for drugging proof, which raises the case from privacy breach to assault. Using a recognized detective tonight. At 10 p.m., Detective Ramona Gilmore and another officer take my phone's Instagram screenshots at our house. She claims Ashley faces multiple criminal charges for giving medicine without authorization due to covert cameras and exploitation. Before my water broke, Ashley arrived. What did she offer me? Did I eat or drink her gifts? I drank the whole cup of herbal tea she gave me that afternoon for late pregnancy discomfort since I believed her. Ramona uses Ryan's confirmation that he saw her alone in our kitchen for several minutes to tamper with my drink. She takes the teacup in our sink as evidence, but she warns that identifying what was in it weeks later will be difficult. She immediately calls the hospital for my medical data, including contraction times and labor speed. The hospital discloses records at night within an hour after Ramona threatens a warrant. By midnight, Ramona and I are reviewing my medical file, and the labor nurse's notes show my contractions went from 0 to active labor swiftly. I thought my water broke normally at home, but Ramona says Ashley chemically changed my body, and I didn't realize. David Mitchell and a forensic tech study Ashley's posted films, frame by frame the next morning. Reflections in windows and mirrors show Ashley adjusting her button camera and metadata, indicating she filmed for hours before I noticed I was in labor. We want to sue Ashley, Prime Media, and the hospital. He warns that this will take months and be exhausting, but the evidence is stronger than most. Linda, Ryan's mother, calls to ask why police searched Ashley's apartment that morning. In response to the producer's claims of drugging, premeditation, and past victims, Linda is puzzled and defensive, saying Ashley wouldn't drug someone until Ryan wants to see her Instagram posts. After a long silence, Linda begs for proof to understand what her daughter did. We email her screenshots, and an hour later she calls crying, saying she had no idea Ashley could deceive and violate. She promises to help with the investigation, but I can hear her sorrowful realization that Ashley is a predator. After executing the search warrant, they confiscated 3 laptops, 2 phones, a tablet, and 6 cameras inside Ashley's home around daybreak. The forensic tech found folders, which made Ramona pause. Ashley gained money abusing weak or preoccupied ladies who didn't notice cameras. I uncovered 2-year-old medical crises, sensitive moments, and intimate procedures in dozens of folders grouped by women's names. She sedated ladies at hospitals, clinics, and dentists to upload, negotiate, and seek fetish website content. My hands shook so much I put Ava in her cot. Ramona was attempting to identify the other victims, but many folder names were first names or nicknames. Some females may never discover they were recorded. Because I was connected, Ashley chose me. Ryan arrived home early from work and saw me staring at my phone with Ava crying because I forgot to burp her. He held the baby and listened to my Ramona recitations. When I recommended 2 years of victims, his face turned gray. His sister had made no terrible mistake. An hour later, David reported that the judge granted his emergency plea to block Ashley's bank accounts by midday, freezing the $60,000 she made from my footage until the criminal case was resolved. David requested Prime Media cease showing Ashley's show immediately with an injunction. Prime Media's attorneys fought it out within hours, arguing Ashley signed a contract, and I signed a release. The criminal investigation changed everything. The court scheduled a hearing the next week to determine if Prime Media's contract was fraudulent. David appeared pleased when he said corporate stonewalling usually failed when misconduct was demonstrated. Prime Media's contract was voided by duress or false claims. Ryan's mom phoned that night with a sorrowful voice. Police examined Ashley's conduct over time. Linda, crying, asked whether Ashley could be helped. Ryan clenched his jaw but softly said Ashley wasn't sick. She calculated. The Instagram post demonstrates her thorough preparation for 2 years. Linda stopped, then sought the evidence to stop defending a stranger. The next Tuesday, I had a 6-week postpartum hospital visit. Walking through those automatic doors squeezed my chest, making breathing difficult. Ashley abused me in these corridors, and the staff ignored Emily's warnings. Emily saw me outside the OB office in the corridor, thinner than I remembered and wearing loose scrubs like she'd lost weight from worry. I agreed with her nervous but determined voice and posture. Down the way was an empty consulting room with a desk, 2 seats and healthy pregnant posters. Emily apologized as she closed the door, sounding practiced. She recorded every hidden camera, Every complaint to her boss, and every hospital administrative dismissal that day, saving her nursing notes, suspicious recording emails, and Ashley's button camera photos. Emily was placed on administrative leave after speaking to the news, informed she breached patient privacy by discussing my case publicly, but she had everything backed up at home and was eager to testify about the hospital's complete failure to protect me. Her voice trembled as she apologized for not removing Ashley from the room or calling security. Emily offered to connect me to the hospital's patient advocate, but she warned me she usually sided with the institution. The hospital seemed to take patient relations seriously in the advocate's office, a corner room with windows facing the parking lot and nice furnishings. The middle-aged woman in a blazer with a frozen grin directed me to sit and apologize for my situation. She promised policy review but didn't report. She stood up, handed me a business card, and said all future contact must go through the hospital's legal department. Unfortunate situation, instead of violation. Reviewing protocols, instead of failure. Emily brought me back to the elevator, apologizing for the meaningless chat. She warned me, but the hospital's rejection was devastating. Security came before videoing my birth. James Thompson wrote formally 2 days later. David's dream was the hospital administrator's defensive, dismissive, and documented response. The hospital claimed it followed all regulations and had no suspicion of illicit taping, but it wouldn't address Emily's concerns or explain why they posted my birth on their website without permission. David smiled as he read it, noting that stonewalling often wrecked defendants in court. This letter would look terrible when Emily testified about being suppressed. Juries hated organizations that covered up apparent mistakes. David immediately subpoenaed all hospital communications about my birth, administrator emails, staff meeting minutes, and their decision to use my delivery for advertising, claiming the institution profited from my violation and failed to protect me. Ryan and I sat behind David at a large table facing the judge the following Thursday at the county courtroom as Prime Media's legal team packed the opposite side with 3 expensive suited lawyers. The wood-paneled formal courtroom was smaller than expected, with a bailiff at the entryway and a court reporter transcribing every Prime Media's senior lawyer declared my release form mandatory regardless of the circumstances, showing me my signature as proof that I was an adult who signed a legal document. David spoke quietly but forcefully. David showed the court my transition films while I was in agony and unable to speak. The judge grew shocked when she witnessed me yell and cry. She went forward and asked Prime Media's lawyer how anyone could say I understood what I signed in that state. Prime Media's lawyer erred by saying birth was natural, and I should have expected to be videotaped in a hospital since they were public places with lower privacy expectations. The judge interrupted him mid-sentence to explain healthcare procedures required informed consent, and hidden cameras were rare. Patients had a right to privacy in critical medical settings, so stating otherwise was absurd. She immediately granted our injunction, stopping Prime Media's broadcasts pending Ashley's criminal prosecution, and ordering Prime Media to store the film in the court for no alteration or distribution. David Mitchell clasped my shoulder as we left the courthouse, and I breathed for the first time in weeks. When Ashley's lawyer called David that afternoon, David said he had been contacted but refused to discuss a plea agreement until we had all the charges. Lawyers don't ask about plea deals when they can win. Later that evening, Ramona Gilmore verified that the district attorney was drafting an indictment for drugging, unlawful recording in a private location, multi-count exploitation of personal photographs, fraud connected to the fake release form, and perhaps more per Ashley's files on other. Ramona said Chandler Bright, the prosecutor, spent hours examining evidence and building something thorough. After weeks of impotence, the criminal case moved quickly. Olivia Scott offered to capture everything for her Netflix series on social media consent violations 3 days later, retaining full editorial control. After Ashley, I was frightened of additional cameras. David offered something we hadn't considered. Ryan and I looked over her emailed contract at the kitchen table. Ashley stated I was envious and unpleasant on social media, and her fans believed her. The documentary may tell her narrative. Two-handed Ryan washed his face. Baby Ava slept in her cradle. The viral videos, memes, and comments criticizing my body came to mind. Strangers saw my weakest side. Controlling the story may feel different. Reclaiming Ashley's narrative may help me recover. David was called to address everything. Olivia included our required protections, and David hailed it the best documentary agreement he'd seen. Signed that night, Olivia and a camera operator and sound technician arrived the following week. She sat up in our living room with calm, non-clinical lighting and asked us to tell what occurred. Ryan gripped my hand as I recalled trusting Ashley throughout labor. Hidden cameras, viral film, finding out she drugged me. Olivia never stopped or deflected. Olivia let me continue. My voice trembled when I stated my finest moment was a meme. She stopped filming and asked if I wanted a break. I took 10 minutes to regroup, then pushed her to start again. I meant to finish. Olivia filmed for 3 hours the first day, asking about emotional, professional, and legal repercussions. I found camera talk odd. Ryan said talking about it helped him feel better when she went. I did too. 2 days later, Ramona contacted regarding Ashley's confiscated files. She found 3 other women's identities and footage like Ashley's of me. Samantha Lewis met with me. Ramona wanted to talk to another victim and gave me her name. Samantha's voice quivered when I called that afternoon. We organized a coffee shop appointment the next morning. I obtained a corner booth early. Samantha came 10 minutes later, nervously searching. Her hands trembled as she sat with tea she rarely drank and told me Ashley injured her. At 16 weeks pregnant, Samantha bled. Ashley, a doula, attended at the hospital. Samantha thought she was helping, but Ashley covertly recorded the miscarriage, Samantha crying, and the doctor informing her she'd lost the baby and sold it to a fetish website. 6 months later, someone recognized her and gave the link. Samantha apologized for crying. I clasped her hand across the table. She was humiliated and never reported it. Family friend Ashley, who would believe someone trusted to help women give birth would record and sell their trauma. She wanted to bring charges immediately. Sam asked if I thought she was dumb for trusting Ashley. Ramona stated this would assist both of us. Ashley's repeated behaviors showed premeditation and predatory behavior. Ramona Gilmore informed us one of the other 2 victims had moved out of state and wasn't answering calls later that week. Ashley calculated and exploited weak women amid medical situations when we couldn't protect ourselves. Traumatized, the woman could not testify. She said Samantha Lewis's name in the case files made her unsuitable for trial. Ramona understood her choice but believed Samantha and I were vital to our case, so we continued. Samantha contacted me that night to stay in touch. I provided a private group chat to complain about the inquiries and share coping strategies. She added me immediately and we started chatting about attorneys and trauma triggers daily. Knowing someone made the process less lonely. Samantha understood what it was like to have outsiders watch your most vulnerable moment. My principal sought a cold, professional discussion regarding my position. Parents concerned about the film. David Mitchell and I visited the principal's office on Tuesday afternoon. She appeared anxious at her desk. 2 school board members were also present. The principal claimed parents contacted constantly after seeing the videos online. David prevented my reply and calmly showed police paperwork, the criminal investigation, and proof that I was drugged and videotaped. One school board member said they had to consider the children's well-being while wanting to revoke my contract. He warned the board that firing me would be criminal punishment against a sexual exploitation victim and that schools had been sued for discrimination. The room quieted. The next week, the school board had a secret session where I told a dozen officials, some of whom seemed anxious and others suspicious, as if I had done something wrong. I described Ashley's betrayal, hidden cameras, drugging evidence, ongoing criminal investigation, at a table facing them, dying inside. Justifying my right to teach because someone violated me felt like being abused again. David described Emily's hidden camera sighting. A board member wondered how this hurt the school's reputation. David said that punishing crime victims for being victimized would tarnish their image more than supporting a competent teacher. We waited 2 hours in the corridor while the board discussed. I heard garbled conversations through the door but couldn't understand. David kept checking his phone and telling me we had a good case. Finally, they called us in. The board decided to end my administrative leave and return me to work. The principal seemed relieved and apologized for parents' responses, promising to write to them explaining I was a crime victim. I kept my job but battling for it after being assaulted left me upset about victim treatment. After being tired, returning to kindergarten seemed unusual. 5-year-olds don't comprehend birth exploitation or viral videos. They only wanted to show me their drawings and stories. I didn't expect their innocence to heal. No one asked where I went. They were delighted I returned. I enjoyed teaching again. Work became my refuge. Legal issues and anguish departed that classroom every morning. I was not the viral birth mother for 6 hours. While I was the fun teacher, Chandler Bright, 40, contacted me to discuss criminal charges. Ryan and I visited his downtown office on Friday afternoon. Chandler charged Ashley with 4 felonies, 3 misdemeanors, drugging assault, unauthorized filming, intimate image exploitation, and fraud. Chandler believed the Instagram postings demonstrating premeditation, the forensic study confirming drugging, Emily's evidence regarding the hidden cameras, and Samantha Lewis's case proving pattern behavior, but he cautioned us that Ashley's counsel would try to paint her as a naive influencer. Ryan gripped my hand as I informed Chandler we were ready for trial, public trauma evaluation, and facing Ashley in court. We wanted Ashley to pay for her abuse of us, Samantha, and the other victims who couldn't come up. Chandler agreed and promised justice. The next morning, Ashley's TikTok account had no videos and her Instagram had 18,000 followers, but no posts. Her lawyer undoubtedly told her to stop, but her admirers continued coming. I was sickened by being branded envious, accused of lying about everything, and trying to damage a woman's career out of spite. Someone even petitioned to dismiss charges. Samantha Lewis emailed me 5 minutes later about the hashtag. I told her I couldn't look, but she reminded me that proof, not online views, counts. Linda wanted to visit Ava that afternoon, her voice sad. Holding the phone in the kitchen, I felt oddly furious and empathetic. Part of me wanted to tell her no, that she raised someone who could poison me and video my birth, but another part remembered that she'd been working with Ramona Gilmore and seemed appalled by her daughter's actions. Ryan took my phone and talked to his mom, then said she deserved a chance. After losing her daughter to jail, she wanted to see her grandchild. I consented, but insisted on limits. She could see Ava but not hold her until I was ready. Ryan agreed and phoned his mom. Linda arrived Saturday morning with 2 gift bags and looked 10 years older. She placed the bags on our coffee table with trembling hands and red, swollen eyes. When she saw Ava in my arms, she cried and apologized, saying she missed the signals and never thought Ashley could be so mean. She gave baby clothes and cuddly animals to make up for her daughter's sins, which felt horrible. Ryan sat next to his mother and gently but firmly told her about Ashley's drugging and filming without consent. Linda nodded and wiped her face with a tissue, acknowledging she couldn't fight anymore. I let her hold Ava for 5 minutes after an hour. She cried. David Mitchell phoned Monday with shocking news. Before I was pregnant, his staff found emails from over a year earlier negotiating a birth content relationship with the fetish website. Ashley promoted his unique access to expectant family members who could deliver victims. She mentioned money, video quality, and camera camouflage in the email. She stated she was having a sibling soon and had been after me for months. Federal authorities probed website administrators for conspiracy and exploitation. David said this proved Ashley was a criminal organization, not just an influencer who made a stupid decision. I hung up and sat on Ava's nursery floor trying to process my sister's almost year-long planning. Every family meal, baby shower, and time she supported me, she plotted to drug and film my delivery for money. 2 days later, Ramona Gilmore called with my teacup forensic results. Ashley had concealed synthetic oxytocin, a medical-grade labor inducer, in my drink. She had bought it months earlier from a veterinary supply business using fake credentials. Ramona suggested prescription drug use and fraud. Physical evidence proved Ashley chemically altered my body to force delivery on her timetable. Ramona asked herself how someone could hurt someone, especially family, after this case began. Despite seeing many crimes in her career, this level of premeditation and treachery was unusual. Olivia Scott interviewed Samantha Lewis and me for a Netflix documentary the following week. Olivia asked how Ashley targeted vulnerable people in medical settings. Samantha told how Ashley was a doula and sold her sadness video. I emphasized the transgression of having someone you trust exploit your body at your weakest. Medical incidents involved privacy and bodily autonomy. Olivia listened closely and asked about our power and activism, not the suffering. I realized this video would help other victims detect abuse and know they're not alone. When Ava was born, my therapist helped me settle a long-standing issue. My therapist said losing my planned birth and Ashley's crimes irrevocably linked to Ava's arrival was convoluted sadness. I kept telling myself to be glad Ava was healthy and that the violation didn't matter compared to having my kid, but she said both may be true. Despite her broken birth, she helped me see Ava as wonderful and independent from the trauma. Every session was slow and made me weep, but some days brought joy. My therapist anticipated long-term ups and downs. Emily wept over the phone one night after the hospital halved her shifts and put her in the worst rotation despite her seniority. She knew her employer had written her up twice for little things in punishment for uncovering the hidden cameras. David added her case to our lawsuit against the hospital, arguing they penalized a whistleblower for exposing ineptitude. Emily was scared her labor and delivery nursing career would be wrecked, but she said she'd do it again because she couldn't remain silent after seeing what happened to me. I told her she was braver than anybody, risking everything for unknown victims. On a cold March morning, Ryan, Samantha Lewis and Ramona Gilmore and I sat in the rear of the courthouse for Ashley's arraignment. Ashley seemed smaller than in her social media videos. Due to her faint voice, the judge ordered Ashley to repeat, not guilty, after reading 4 accusations, including assault and recording without permission. If found guilty of all 3, 12 years in jail. The judge set bond at $75,000. Ashley's parents promised their house within an hour. Linda signed the forms with shaking hands, looking sorrowful. Ashley was released with strict conditions: no social media, no victim contact, GPS bracelet, passport surrender. She nodded at each request without looking. 2 days after Ashley left the courtroom with her parents, David Mitchell phoned to invite us to his office. Ryan and I went silently with Ava dozing in her car seat. David's aide took us to a paper-filled conference room. David stopped Ryan from receiving $450,000 from the hospital to settle the civil lawsuit. We signed a non-disclosure agreement to hide what transpired and the hospital's involvement. David reclined and told us to refuse. We had enough evidence to win more in trial, but an NDA would silence us forever. I studied the page number. With $450,000, we could pay off the house, start Ava's education fund, and neglect medical expenses. But I worried about Emily losing her job for speaking up and other women giving birth in that hospital without knowing their privacy may be compromised, so I pushed the paper across the table. Ryan nodded and told David we declined. David grinned and said it was exactly what he expected. Ready for trial. 3 weeks later, David's paralegal brought hospital documents into his office for a discovery review. Emily wasn't the first nurse to oppose to delivery room footage. Administration disregarded a visitor with numerous phones, a lady adjusting a camera in her purse, and a family member suspiciously leaving and returning to the delivery room. David excitedly spread the paperwork on the table. When the hospital ignored privacy warnings, David added systemic negligence to his claim. Hospital representatives seek another settlement meeting within 48 hours. David said we'd consider their offer after removing James Thompson and establishing new privacy precautions. They agreed within a week. They knew a jury would punish them for valuing reputation over patient safety. Ashley breached her bond by making a false TikTok account and uploading victim videos. Case fans understood the messages. Ramona Gilmore phoned 20 minutes later to report locating the account within 48 hours of its formation. Ashley's bond includes social media monitoring, which Ramona's staff checked. Ashley appeared in orange jumpsuit the next morning to request bond revocation. Her lawyer stated she didn't understand the social media prohibition on hidden accounts, but the judge interrupted him. Social media promoted Ashley's career. Ashley cried and held her parents as the bailiff took her away. Chandler visited us in his office to present a plea arrangement in which Ashley would acknowledge 2 crimes and drop the others after Ashley's arrest. Chandler explained math at his conference table. A plea deal guaranteed Ashley 5 years in jail, no acquittal, and no escape. A trial might result in 12 years if we won all charges. Samantha asked Chandler what to do. Chandler remained mute, then claimed the drugging, premeditation, and Instagram planned posts were proof. Chandler and I met again the next week to provide our final decision. The firm owner who abused vulnerable women required more than 5 years. Samantha and I gazed at each other. Ashley's attorney said she needed therapy for social media addiction, not incarceration. They showed her crying, apologizing, and saying she never meant to hurt anyone. Chandler responded with planning paperwork, drugging proof, and many victims. He would prove this was premeditated exploitation, but judges were human and made emotional choices, so they would see Ashley as a misguided young woman rather than a predator. Samantha spoke first. She called 5 years excessive for what Ashley did to her at her lowest point. I agreed. Ashley exploited women in medical difficulties and violated our privacy. 5 years wasn't fair. We persuaded Chandler Bright to reject the plea offer and prepare for trial. Chandler nodded and agreed. Chandler and David Mitchell coordinated criminal and civil cases to support each other's evidence. Ashley's tape had to be evaluated without watching. Trial was 8 weeks away. Chandler's paralegal detailed each file, and I checked whether it matched my work. Exam film showed me completely exposed. Close-ups of crowning. Shouting I wanted to die. Ryan held my hand throughout every review of Ashley's heist. Some nights following the sessions, I couldn't sleep, worrying about strangers watching, my body being sold on fetish websites, and Ava learning about her birth. My evidence was crucial to proving the violation's magnitude. Olivia Scott's Netflix documentary team filmed our trial preparation in David's office, including strategy conversations, witness prep, and the emotional toll of reliving everything. Olivia interviewed trial experts. A psychiatrist said pain and disturbed mental states impair active work consent capacity. A tech specialist showed Ashley's sophisticated Covert camera setup, indicating premeditation. A victim advocate explained the psychological effects of unauthorized photo use. Olivia interviewed other digital abuse victims, online celebrity shattered families, and how courts failed to address crimes that didn't exist 20 years ago. Samantha Lewis's case proceeded as my felony case went to trial. Ashley was charged with many crimes for unlawfully documenting her miscarriage. Ashley's attorney offered 7 and 8 years in plea deals. We refused Chandler's new offer immediately. Ashley's lawyer was frantic as trial approached due to the abundant evidence, but we didn't want to aid her. She drugged and recorded my delivery. Chandler and Ashley's lawyer questioned jurors on social media, influencers, and digital privacy for 3 days. Chandler intentionally rejected pro-influencer, anti-social media, and anti-medical jurors to find those who understood online culture but didn't believe Ashley's addiction defense that she was only making stuff. A retired teacher, software engineer, nurse, construction worker, accountant, store manager, bank teller, mechanic, social worker, librarian, sales rep, and dental hygienist were on our jury after 3 days. Chandler rejected most of Ashley's lawyer's attempts to seat younger jurors who understood influencer pressure. Chandler was pleased. On Monday, trial began. Samantha Lewis sat next to Ryan and me at the prosecution table, while Linda sat opposite from Ashley's lawyer. Everyone stood as the judge emerged. Ashley entered in modest attire. Her lawyer chose to make her look innocent and youthful. She sat without looking at us. Chandler began his opening address in the jury box. He revealed how Ashley secretly turned my birth into a business transaction, including months of planning on her private Instagram, covert cameras, Pitocin drugging to control my labor, and delivery room camera location. Chandler showed the jury Ashley's Instagram posts about Project Birth, a military operation, including giving me medications and filming everything. The jurors were appalled. Chandler's voice was strong as he pledged to show Ashley's premeditated exploitation. After he finished, some jurors looked disgusted with Ashley. The trial began, and we were ready to fight. The next morning I shivered, grabbing my knees, in the witness room with David Mitchell. Chandler returned one more time to encourage me to face the jury directly. Ryan grabbed my hand before calling me in. The courtroom seemed huge as I took the witness stand and swore to the truth. Chandler Bright gently asked me about my pre-Ava relationship with Ashley. I told him I trusted her and that she held my hand in the birth room during my worst pain. He asked about the release paperwork, and I remembered the clipboard she threw at me during transition, and how I was dazed and blind. I broke down when Chandler asked, when I first discovered the videos, remembering witnessing my most vulnerable moment air 3 weeks after Ava's birth to millions. He helped me with each offense. The hidden cameras, fetish website and memes from my crowning moment kept me together until he asked how I felt after Ashley drugged me. Explaining that she used my body to produce material brought tears to my eyes. I shakily added that every time I see Ava's birth photographs, I remember covert cameras photographing my nude body for sale and viewing. As the jury sat silent, Ashley's lawyer aggressively cross-examined me, accusing me of exaggerating the incident for sympathy. Brian Mitchell had prepared me, so I kept my cool and corrected each false statement with facts. I calmly explained that hidden cameras are there for a reason and that Ashley had offered to stay with me during a contraction. The lawyer accusingly asked whether I'd benefited from the publicity, if my social media following had risen, and if I'd gained money or prospects. I told the jury that becoming a meme while crowning is not beneficial. Strangers buying my vagina film is not an opportunity. I didn't want attention fighting to keep my teaching job since parents saw me at my worst. I'll never forget having my most vulnerable moment stolen and sold. No amount of following or attention can undo this. The lawyer asked more questions, but Brian's preparation was meticulous, and I wouldn't let him distort my words or diminish Ashley's conduct. I spoke the truth. My legs felt like rubber as I stepped down. Emily testified next, wearing a modest frock instead of her nurse garb and gripping her hands tightly. After 8 years in labor and delivery, Emily described Ava's birth with precision. Chandler asked Emily when she first noticed something odd. Emily said she saw Ashley change something on her blouse that looked like a camera lens, the coffee cup at a suspicious angle, and the pocketbook with a hole looking at me. After her supervisor dismissed her concerns, Emily's voice rose. The hospital administrator told her to focus on her job and avoid causing problems, but she argued that patients had a right to privacy during medical procedures. The front-row older lady juror shook her head in disdain as Emily described being silenced by institutional interests and watching a patient be raped while her concerns were ignored. Emily was sanctioned for speaking to the media and protecting a patient after the tapes went public. Chandler asked Emily whether she'd documented her fears, and Emily gave out a folder of time-stamped notes from that day listing each camera she'd seen and each time she'd tried to interfere. The evidence against Ashley and the hospital revealed medical personnel observed the infringement in real time. Samantha Lewis testified after lunch that she met Ashley at a pregnancy loss support group and that Ashley volunteered to be her doula during the miscarriage to help people through difficult medical conditions. Sam broke down as she recounted the 16-week miscarriage, its physical and mental anguish, with Ashley holding her hand and promising to assist. 6 months later, Samantha was sent a link to a fetish website selling her miscarriage tape. The jurors were horrified when Samantha told Chandler about her and my hidden cameras, sensitive medical times, violation of trust, sale to fetish website, and fraudulent permission claims. Ashley abused vulnerable women's sensitive moments during medical procedures after befriending them. After showing the Pitocin in my teacup, Ashley's fake veterinarian credentials, and the chronology showing my labor began within hours of drinking her tea, the prosecution rested. Ashley's lawyer shuffled papers without looking at anybody. Sad. Brian Mitchell anticipated Ashley to testify the next morning. Narcissism wouldn't let her stay silent or let her lawyer tell the story. She looked young and innocent in a soft pink sweater with minimum makeup and a ponytail. She cried and shook as she apologized for being caught up in influencer culture, saying she was drafting birth education papers and believed I'd like it. Chandler Bright had Ashley read the Project Birth Instagram post during cross-examination. The jury were torn on her portrayal as a victim of social media pressure, someone who made wrong mistakes but deserved forgiveness. Ashley groused that she panicked and erred when Chandler asked about the veterinarian supply fraud and fetish website encounters. She didn't know the site's kind. Chandler gave Ashley emails about content categories and price to prove she knew what and to whom to market. When asked about Samantha Lewis, Ashley said she was younger and didn't know better. Chandler cut down every explanation, minimized, or justified until Ashley sobbed on the stand, showing the jurors her premeditation and intentional brutality. After Ashley resigned, the defense called a social media addiction specialist to testify judgment and that her compulsive need for online acceptance impaired her decision-making, like gambling addiction. He claimed her urge to create and get admirers was overwhelming. Chandler's 30-year psychiatrist gently refuted the addiction thesis, stating that Ashley's premeditation wasn't caused by addiction and that compulsion doesn't take months to arrange an exploit. She described deliberate acts, fake credentials, hidden camera purchases, and fetish website talks. No judgment or control flaws were shown. Someone was using vulnerable ladies for profit. When the psychiatrist stressed that Ashley's conduct was antisocial personality traits, not addiction, and that her tears on the stand were manipulation rather than sorrow, several jurors nodded, giving me hope that they could see through Ashley's performance. Chandler testified Friday afternoon that Ashley drugged me to control when my daughter was born to acquire better material. The courtroom was packed with media and bystanders. Every piece of evidence, witness testimony, and intentional cruelty in Ashley's strategy was investigated. Chandler pleaded with the jury to punish Ashley for every decision, violation, and life she damaged for online fame and money. Ashley's counsel decided that his client was young and misled to seek sympathy. He begged the jury to show mercy since Ashley had apologized and expressed regret, but after what the jury had seen and heard, his cries for compassion for someone who'd shown none to her victims seemed hollow. The jury deliberated for 7 hours while we waited in a separate room down the hall. As Samantha Lewis passed the window and Brian Mitchell checked his phone, Ramona Gilmore told us twice that the long deliberation showed they were taking the charges seriously and reviewing all the evidence. The jury verdict call came around 6 p.m. Judge entered and asked the foreperson to stand. The 60-year-old retired teacher steadily held the verdict form. First count, unauthorized recording, guilty. Second count, intimate image dissemination, guilty. Linda wept across the aisle as her daughter was convicted on all charges. Ashley cringed as the judge thanked the jurors and sentenced her to 3 weeks in prison. For the first time since this nightmare began, I thought justice might prevail. Chandler Bright called 2 days later to discuss sentence, saying the judge would review sentencing guidelines after both parties presented impact statements and suggestions. He asked me to submit a victim impact statement outlining how Ashley's activities had affected my life to help the judge understand the full extent of the damage beyond legal transgressions. I spent the following week redrafting to emphasize Ashley's theft without looking vindictive or angry. Ashley's actions had lasting impacts, I wanted the judge to know. Therapy, phone panic attacks, and knowing hidden cameras were taping Ava's birth photographs were covered. I wrote about trying to keep my teaching job, memes that still circulate online, strangers who bought film of my most vulnerable moment, and how she drugged me and took away my choice over when and how my child was born. Brian Mitchell thought my statement was forceful and honest, just what the judge needed. Ashley appeared wearing the same modest clothing from trial, her cheeks puffy from crying. When the court requested me to make my statement, I shakily proceeded to the platform with my printed pages. I told Ashley how she made my most painful time into entertainment while I read. I kept my calm as I mentioned that Ava's birth photographs make me tremble since hidden cameras were shooting my exposed body. I told the judge Ashley chemically controlled my body to generate content, stopping me from selecting when and how my child was born. Parents saw my most raw and broken self on their phones, so I struggled to educate. I informed them that others had seen parts of me my spouse hasn't, that my crowning moment became a meme shared by thousands, and that this violation will damage my safety and trust forever, even if the videos disappear. Ashley cried without looking at me, jerking her shoulders as I told her about her misdeeds. Samantha Lewis then took the stage to discuss the 16-week loss, shivering but strengthening. Ashley disguised herself as a doula to secretly record her biggest loss, which she rediscovered 6 months later on the same fetish site, watched people buy, and experienced her suffering. Samantha disclosed medical trauma, treachery, and pregnancy loss profiteering as the judge moved closer, apparently worried. Samantha stared at Ashley after finishing and hoped jail would teach her that suffering isn't content. The courtroom was quiet as Samantha returned to her seat beside me and I held her hand while the judge checked her notes. The judge spent many minutes reviewing sentencing guidelines and Brian Mitchell's evidence binders. She said the premeditation, drugging, serial victim exploitation, and sale of personal material showed predatory behavior, not bad judgment. The penalty was 12 years in prison with release after 8 and lifelong sex offender registration for distributing personal photos without consent. Ashley's attorney immediately asked the judge to reconsider, saying the sentence exceeded the plea agreement, but the judge ruled the aggravating elements justified it. Ryan's arm wrapped around me as the words hit me. Brian Mitchell walked us to his car without speaking while reporters with cameras and microphones watched Ashley and Linda cry as the bailiff arrested them. 2 months after Brian Mitchell utilized Emily's evidence, administrators' disdain for recording objections, and expert testimony on patient privacy standards to prove hospital negligence, the civil trial began. After 5 days of testimony, Brian won. Emily found the hidden cameras, contacted her supervisor, and was told to mind her own business because the family was pleased. Emily said the supervisor threatened her job if she persisted, and that she took detailed, contemporaneous notes of every interaction. When the hospital's lawyers tried to portray her as prejudiced or seeking publicity, Emily was calm and accurate. She showed emails showing she expressed concerns within 2 hours of my delivery, before any backlash. Brian Mitchell called the 3 nurses who'd reported unusual recording in earlier births. Their evidence showed administrative disregard for patient privacy. The hospital administrator rejected Emily's concerns and seemed uncomfortable when Brian asked why family dispute trumped patient safety. The jury viewed film of my birth on the hospital's advertising website and heard testimony about how quickly they capitalized without my consent. Brian concluded that hospitals must protect vulnerable people even in tough situations. After 11 hours of debate, the 4 women found patient privacy, whistleblower retaliation, and no filming breaches, totaling $2.1 million in compensation and punitive damages. Emily received $400,000 for career loss and revenge, and Brian Mitchell wasn't concerned when the hospital's attorneys appealed immediately. He said the evidence was overwhelming, and the jury's verdict supported. 3 weeks after the hospital judgment, Prime Media's attorneys offered Brian a settlement that included no broadcast plans, an unknown advocacy fee, and permanent deletion of all material from their servers. The settlement figure was enough to sustain years of agitation for other victims, and I signed the arrangement with relief that at least part of this agony was ended. Federal authorities arrested fetish website operators for conspiracy to exploit personal photos and transmit non-consensual data. Ashley is deliberately recruited to covertly record vulnerable women during medical procedures. To avoid trial, the owners committed to permanently remove exploitative content from their servers, reimburse victims, and assist with similar website investigations. Brian Mitchell helped me file a restitution claim, but he warned that the operators had hidden most of their income in overseas accounts, so compensation would be small. Olivia Scott's Netflix documentary, which aired 6 months after Ashley's imprisonment, was 90 minutes long and focused on systemic issues rather than personal pain. Olivia Scott interviewed legal experts on medical privacy gaps, medical ethicists on informed consent in vulnerable contexts, and social media exploitation victims who shared their stories. Samantha Lewis and I were featured, however Olivia Scott followed our filming and framing choices. The video began with facts about non-consensual intimate image sharing, then used our experiences to highlight how social media fosters violation and how institutions prioritize reputation over victim safety. Reviews felt it was important to address consent in the digital age. We were surprised when state lawmakers and advocacy organizations approached us to create medical privacy regulations and work on awareness campaigns. Social media users commended you for speaking out and demanding stricter rules. Like our tragedy was meaningful, not just entertainment. My compensation money helped me form the Medical Privacy Legal Fund, which represents healthcare victims of intimate picture exploitation for free. Samantha Lewis became co-director, and Brian Mitchell found pro bono or low-cost attorneys. Our victims' rights tools, guidance to reporting abuses, and self-defense legal papers healed better than therapy. Every victim felt like we were seizing Ashley's power, transforming our violation into help. In 6 months, we hired a small team, acquired office space, and helped 43 victims file complaints, lawsuits, or criminal charges against exploiters. Like mine, several cases involved hidden delivery filming or non-consensual medical treatments or exams. Each narrative showed how widespread this violation was and how many victims suffered in silence because they didn't know they had options. After Ashley's imprisonment, Linda felt terrible for ignoring warning signs and anguished over losing her daughter to jail. I joined Ryan and his parents' family therapy after several sessions. Linda confessed for questioning me, making excuses, and bailing Ashley. The therapy helped her manage complicated emotions without blaming me. I told her trust would take time to repair after accepting her apologies. She held her ground and focused on Ava without demanding more than I was comfortable offering. She became a loving grandma who attended Ava's milestones, babysat when needed, and bought meaningful gifts instead of forgiveness. When Linda wept watching Ava blow out candles at her second birthday party, I realized I was starting to separate Linda from Ashley's behaviors. She didn't commit the crimes, so punishment wouldn't change anything. We were creating something new and sustainable, but never as close. After reading about the whistleblower retaliation case, the nursing director hired Emily to work at a nearby hospital with strong patient advocate policies and a reputation for taking privacy violations seriously. At nursing conferences, Emily stressed the importance of protecting vulnerable patients. Her selection to our Legal Funds Advisory Board helped us understand healthcare systems and institutional barriers to reporting breaches. We had coffee every couple weeks, and she stated speaking out was the hardest but most important thing she'd ever done. She lost friends at her previous hospital who thought she betrayed it, and the career disruption was stressful, but she had no regrets. Her bravery inspired other doctors to report privacy violations, creating a ripple effect of accountability. 2 nurses from different hospitals asked her about reporting suspicious recordings after hearing the video. 2 years after her birth, I was teaching again, organizing the legal fund with Samantha Lewis and watching my kid become a joyful toddler who didn't understand what happened. Emily introduced them to Brian Mitchell and our legal fund, which changed their institution's policies. I still shuddered when people pulled out phones, had dreams about hidden cameras, and felt terrible when I read Ashley's name in court documents, but I'd built a life around the tragedy. Our legal fund helped over 200 victims in 2 years, and our documentary influenced 4 state laws. Emily taught nurses nationwide about patient privacy. Ryan and I had grown closer through everything, and after such a violation, we wanted another child and the personal sacred experience we'd been denied. Switch hospitals, tighten limitations, and believe our birthroom visitor instincts. I smiled back as Ava grinned from her blocks. I learned that healing isn't about erasing or denying the violation altered me. Although part of me will always be in that delivery room wondering how someone I trusted could betray me so completely, I should build something meaningful from the wreckage and go forward. My adopted sister declared she was an only child, erased me from family photos. But her true colors exposed at party, and now she's begging to stay. After 3 years of fostering, we adopted Sam at 10. She liked our 7-year-old Ella. Sam pretended Ella didn't exist in high school. The only child, Sam announced. She hid Ella's photos and made the second bedroom a guest room for students. Sam, 15, would block the doorway and say, "The adults are talking. Go play somewhere else." Ella felt like a neighbor kid who'd strayed in. Sam cropped Ava from family photos on social media. Every family vacation photo she posted was modified to eliminate her sibling. She tagged photos, "Only child life means all the attention," and "So blessed my parents chose me, and only me." Ella queries were deleted. She spent years writing her parents' miracle baby story. She informed her students that her parents loved and adopted her because they couldn't have children. Sam remarked that teachers at conferences with both kids would mistake us for another family. She changed greatly at home. After we departed, she told Ella, "I'll get you into boarding school when I'm 18. Because Sam claimed we'd be unhappy with Ella for making problems, she didn't tell us about her concern about being sent away. School events were terrible, so Sam volunteered at the check-in desk and declared Ella absent. Sam lied about Ella's art display, piano concert, and science fair dates and times, removing her professor's emails before we saw them. Sam also sent Ella on errands at family occasions to keep her away. Ella returned inside to find everyone dining and no spot for her. Sam shrugged and said, "I thought you already ate." She stole Ella's birthday cards and money from family and donated her duplicate parcels. Ella shut down at family dinners after 4 years of Sam erasing her sibling while we worked and missed the symptoms. Sam's high school graduation party was a disaster since she was taught to be quiet at home. We invited extended family, teachers, and friends. Sam exhibited a slideshow of her childhood to highlight her growth. Sam didn't know Ella's teacher, Mrs. Thompson, was suspicious of why we never answered her letters about Ella's troubles, so she documented everything and contacted my sister, who confirmed we had 2 girls. Mrs. Thompson rose as Sam alone at birthday celebrations, Christmas mornings without Ella's presence, and vacation photos with awful Photoshop removing individuals displayed. "Where's your other daughter in these images, Ella?" Sam whitened. "I have no sister," she said. Sis took her phone. She sent the attendees the original images via airdrop. Sam's best friend Caroline screamed, "Ella came in with a package that looked like nothing but everyone knew would crush us. You told me you were an only child." The package hit the gift table and made everyone jump, then Ava tipped it over. Dozens of birthday cards in their envelopes with my mother and sister's handwriting fell first. I didn't recognize the handwriting because we'd never received them. My mother's ancestral jewelry flashed as it fell across the table. Sam had worn the necklace to a family supper 2 years previously and told everyone our mother gave it to her. Ella placed a school-use spiral notebook on top of the pile as the last thing out of the box. Nobody moved. The slideshow behind Sam showed Sam alone at the beach, where both girls built sandcastles. As Mrs. Thompson approached the table and opened the notebook to a random page, she cleared her throat and read her March email about Ella skipping an art event. I felt cold and heavy. After that, Mrs. Thompson sent 7 more emails, each more worrisome than the last, wondering why we weren't answering and if everything was well at home. They were all erased before we saw them. She said she started keeping notes when she believed something was. Sam retreated to the door as her face changed white to deep scarlet, like before vomiting or fainting. Sam stood alone by the Christmas tree as visitors flipped between Sam's slideshows changing photographs and my sister's airdropped shots. Cousin showed her phone to the next person. Ella sat next to her with a morning-purchased teddy bear. Samantha reached the door. Caroline sprang up so fast her chair tumbled over and approached Sam with her phone. Everyone could hear her weak voice as she claimed 3 years as Sam's best friend, 3 years of sleepovers, late-night discussions and sharing everything. Sam told her about being an only child, and how her parents adopted her following infertility. Caroline cringed as she showed a phone photo of both girls at Ella's 13th birthday party, and asked Sam how many more lies she'd told. She wondered whether their friendship was false. Sam answered nothing. He stopped Sam from leaving and told her to stay in a harsh, flat and hard voice. I was trapped between my kids. Ella stood taller than before, shoulders back and chin up. On the table were stolen cards and packages, and that journal of 4 years of abuse. Sam had nowhere to hide. People left in tiny groups, talking, going out. My husband stopped to let them pass, but watched Sam. Relatives looked at us like bad parents for not realizing their kid was gone. A distant aunt took her luggage and went without saying goodbye. My sister grabbed the notebook from the present table and read it with Mrs. Thompson, gently flipping pages. Sam reclined on the couch, knees to her chest, ignoring everyone. The notepad was thick, maybe 80 pages, and my sister reported Ella's handwriting, dates, and TI. Sam told my parents wouldn't attend my piano concert on March 15th, put Grandma's birthday card in her backpack on April 3rd, and shut me out for supper on May 22nd and told everyone I'd eaten. Reading that one aloud destroyed Mrs. Thompson's voice. Sam offered Ella boarding school, hid photos, intercepted email, and made Ella miss important school events. My younger daughter chronicled her erasure for 4 years because she was afraid to tell us. Made myself walk to Sam. I felt like someone else owned my legs. I sat on the couch next to her and tried to sound normal when I asked her to explain. She squeezed her knees and muttered, "I didn't understand." I waited. She repeated, "Help me understand." Then tell me why. My husband opened a $50 birthday card from his mother, who was proud of Ella for earning honor roll. 2 years previously, he opened another from my aunt with Ella's favorite bookshop gift card. Each card contained money or gift cards and a note from a family member wanting to stay in touch with Ella. His hands started shaking. Mrs. Thompson held my shoulder as my husband read card after card from family who must have felt we were keeping Ella away. The business card from Mrs. Thompson's purse showed Grace Turner as a family therapist specializing in sibling conflict and adoption. She recommended us to call Grace immediately because she had helped other families through difficult times. We sat in the living room surrounded by evidence after Mrs. Thompson and my sister left. Birthday cards and gifts were still on the gift table. Ella's October journal entry showed Sam telling her she'd be sent away. 4 years. How do you handle this? How do you start the conversation? My husband looked at me, unsure. Ella softly got up and went up the stairs. I heard her bedroom door close and the lock click. I set the lock 3 years ago when she begged for privacy, thinking it was normal teen behavior. I asked to sit with her but she declined. I rested my forehead against the door and attempted to say something, but it was absurd and hollow. I'm sorry. Feels like nothing after 4 years. Returned downstairs. Sam stayed on the couch while my husband carefully turned pages in the notepad. Sam said Ella was dramatic and purposely made her look terrible. Husband's head snapped. He raged about falsehoods, stolen cards, and 4 years of torture. Sam made her sister invisible in her own home. When he said Ella was afraid and we were blind, his voice cracked. After Sam grieved, my husband left, telling her to remember that she hurt someone she loved and trusted, and nearly killed her sister. I heard his garage door open and car start. I sat with Sam as she cried into her knees. I wanted to calm her, shake her, and ask how she did it, but I felt like I was drowning. Sam stopped crying, got up, and went to her room without looking at me. I started reading it 4 years and 2 months after Sam started high school on the couch, surrounded by money-filled birthday cards, unopened deliveries, and that dreadful notepad. I read Ella's handwritten entries, dates and times regarding every lie, deception, every time she felt out of place in her family. We misinterpreted her immobility as teenage moodiness and missed the clues. Our husband arrived fatigued after midnight. I didn't inquire where he was. One notebook held Sam's social media screenshots of modified photographs and captions about being an only kid. Another contained written emails between Sam and her friends. Sam handwrote lists of Ella's school activities to destroy them. Her laptop had an open, only child story document with bullet points of lies she told to clarify her story. Each piece of evidence made it worse. I thought of all the times Ella attempted to tell us something was wrong but we were too busy, weary, or engaged on work to listen. In the morning, neither of us had slept. Sam came downstairs like usual and asked when we were leaving for her graduation breakfast. We planned a large brunch at her favorite restaurant with extended family. She asked in her pajamas in the kitchen like last night hadn't happened. My spouse stared at her before telling her there would be no brunch. My spouse said he had 4 years of evidence and scores of witnesses. He told Sam not to call Ella a liar, and Sam screamed that we supported Ella, that she was our biological daughter and we always loved her more, and that her efforts were never enough. Our ridiculous sibling conflict was destroying her life, she complained. Husband told her to go to room. She yelled that he couldn't tell her what to do at 18. Sitting in the kitchen listening to the doors crash, I realized Sam felt victimized and thought we overreacted. Nothing worried me more than that. I went upstairs to check on Ava. Her door was bolted. I knocked and called her. No response. I banged again. My stomach dropped when I heard movement and a sound within. Her breathing was quick and rough, like she was out of air. I shouted her name and ran downstairs with my spouse to call her from outside. She said she couldn't breathe, so my husband removed the lock with a screwdriver. Ava was hyperventilating on her bed with her knees up and her lips blue. My spouse sat across from her and held her hand. She said she was terrified when she could talk. Samantha said Sam always warned her we would send her away at 18 and swore to convince us we only needed one daughter once she stopped pretending. She waited 4 years for us to tell her to go and asked if we were sending her to boarding school. 1 hour of chatting and sitting with her relaxed her enough to trust us not to send her away. My husband asked Mrs. Thompson for advice and she told us to take Ella to the doctor immediately because this anxiety was too much. She gave us Ella's pediatrician's number and told us to call when they opened and say it was urgent. Ella stared at her hands in the waiting area for our afternoon appointment. When the doctor called back, she asked about her mood. Ella talked about 4 years of threats, manipulation, and captivity. She started sleeping soundly 2 years ago because she was frightened we'd take her to boarding school if she woke up. Her mail was taken and she missed family and school events. Ella saved the notepad because she believed no one would believe her without proof. The doctor listened and examined Ella's fear, sleep and safety, diagnosing severe anxiety. Ella had lived in terror and hypervigilance at home for 4 years, and she warned that continuous psychological abuse may affect her mental health and development. She prescribed anti-anxiety medication and ordered her to start therapy immediately. Ella needed help urgently, so she recommended 3 teenage trauma therapists and told us to call them all today. Chronic psychological assault takes time to recover, so we expected a long road. We left the doctor with a prescription, 3 phone numbers, and guilt over letting our daughter suffer for 4 years. My sister submitted the original photos to the family group chat, and my aunt questioned Sam's edited images. I explained everything from my car in the work parking lot because I couldn't go inside. My cousin called next, so I rehashed everything. Reminding myself that we'd ignored 4 years of violence at home made me feel smaller and more embarrassed. My uncle treated Sam. My husband's sister called to say we were overreacting, that sisters sometimes fight. She defensively said we were being too difficult on Sam when I told her this wasn't usual sibling rivalry. Later that day his brother called to say the same. After a week, half the family supported us, while the other half thought we were wasting Sam's life. The gap made things worse. Sam received a college email 4 days after the party. With a strange look, she stepped downstairs with her phone and stated the admissions office wanted her to call. I stared at my spouse but didn't say anything. She called from upstairs and got louder. 20 minutes later, she came down crying. A graduation party member alerted the university, and the admissions office warned her of uncomfortable character information and wanted to debate her enrollment. She begged us to rectify it and cried more. He shouted at her to accept the consequences of her actions. She cried and ran upstairs, but my husband grabbed my elbow and shook his head. After Ella returned from my sister's house, we planned a family gathering for that night. The 4 of us sat in the living room and started shouting within 5 minutes. Sam said Ella was lying and intentionally making things worse. Hearing my kid cry in her room hurt my chest, but I knew he was right. Ella sat silently before playing a 6-month-old covert audio recording. Sam spoke clearly and coldly, informing Ella that when she turned 18, she would convince us to send her to boarding school because we only needed one daughter. Ella nodded when my husband requested for more recordings and stated she stored many in a hidden folder since she knew no one would believe her without proof. Sam blanched white at her own voice and Ella refused her phone grab. Sam stared at the floor when asked what she wanted to say. She murmured that she was sorry, but couldn't explain why. After Ella went to bed, my husband and I discussed future steps. We disagreed on anything so important for the first time in our marriage. He wanted Sam to stay home for a year to make atonement and grow, while I worried about her future and whether college would heal everyone. He got angry and said I was again putting Sam's comfort before Ella's safety. I angrily stated I was thinking for both children. We battled for nearly an hour, getting louder and more agitated. He reminded me of all the times I'd dismissed Sam's actions, saying he was too busy at work. We argued about our work schedules and how we'd failed as parents by focusing on our careers. He said we shouldn't have worked so hard when the girls needed us home, but I maintained we both made that decision. We rarely spoke before bed. I recognized this had harmed our marriage as I lay awake. We'd always worked together, but now we were on opposite sides trying to fix something we'd both ruined. The next morning, I took Ella to her first trauma-focused teen psychologist visit. Ella waited next to me, plucking her nails without looking at me. When the therapist called back, she introduced herself and detailed the session. Ella let me stay and answered easy school and hobby questions. A compassionate therapist kept asking questions until Ella spoke up about home life after 20 minutes. She felt invisible and in continual panic in her family. Therapists listened and took notes. Ella said she hadn't slept well in 2 years because she was always worried about Sam. Ella departed for the waiting room, so the therapist wanted to talk alone. She told me Ella had been in terror and needed twice-weekly sessions for 6 months to regain her sense of safety and self-worth. I tried not to cry. Ella was strong and would mend with support, but it would take time. 2 days later, Caroline, Sam's best friend, unexpectedly visited our house and requested to speak to Sam. She had a red face and tense jaw. After I called Sam downstairs, they went to the front yard and raged so loudly that neighbors came out to watch within minutes. Sam heard Caroline felt betrayed and used and didn't know if she could forgive Sam because their friendship was based on her lies. Sam said she just wanted to fit in, and didn't. Caroline interrupted her and said constructing a phony life and removing your sister was enormous. After trusting Sam and sharing her sensitive things, she didn't know what was true and what was a lie. Sam cried and stated she lied about having a sister and their bond. Caroline left after telling Sam to stop contacting her. Sam wailed in the yard as 3 neighbors observed from their porches. My husband dragged her home and she closed her door upstairs. The next afternoon, Ella's school counselor, David Collins, called to address her academic condition. He had a pile of documents on his desk and told us Ella's grades had dropped from an A to barely passing most subjects in 4 years. He showed us school activities attendance figures. At least 15 events where Ella registered but was absent. He took sign-in sheets from the school talent event, art exhibition, and club meetings. Each had Ella's name and a note saying she didn't show up. My husband wondered how that was possible since Ella was at school. Mr. Collins said Ella was marked absent at the check-in desks before. After the graduation party, Mrs. Thompson informed Mr. Collins that Sam had offered to keep her sister out. He claimed Ella was smart but hindered by circumstances and suggested longer exam time, class breaks for anxiety, and summer school to make up for missing opportunities. He urged her to refocus intellectually. I thanked him and we agreed to meet again to create an accommodation plan. That night, a college admissions representative notified Sam that they were delaying her character evaluation registration due to context. My husband and I spent 2 hours writing a cryptic email about severe family trouble at the kitchen table. Honesty was important, but we didn't want to hurt her future. Sam apologized and accepted responsibility, and we noted that she'd always been a good student but could improve. My husband reread it 3 times before submitting. The college may have reconsidered or rejected her, but I knew every choice was wrong. My mother called 2 days after my sister told her. She rapidly blasted our parenting without basis, stating Sam behaved out because we prioritized Ava because she was our biological child. I told her the opposite, but she ignored me and said we probably made Sam feel like an outsider in her family. She stated sibling rivalry was typical and we overreacted by calling therapists and universities, which enraged me. She thought we were too hard on Sam and didn't understand adoption. I hung up after telling her she didn't know what she was talking about because she hadn't experienced Ella's experience. She was outraged and called me disrespectful. My husband's brother contacted him that day and stated we turned Sam into a villain when she was confused. My husband hung up after a fierce disagreement. Our extended family was divided that night. Some understood what happened, while others concerned we were damaging Sam's life. I was devastated when Ella asked to remain with my sister 4 weeks after graduation because she felt unsafe with Sam at home. Even though it hurt to admit our house wasn't secure for her, my husband and I agreed to let her go. Ella packed a bag with clothes and books while Sam stood in the doorway with an incomprehensible face. Ella quietly passed her and went downstairs with her bag. My sister arrived 20 minutes later and helped Ella pack the car, glaring at me and chastising us. My spouse hugged me and I leaned on him. We lost both children differently. One didn't trust us, and one destroyed it. Sam went downstairs the next morning and made cereal like usual. My husband stopped when he saw her on her phone at the kitchen table. We discussed what to do until 3 in the morning and decided to approach Sam with everything. My spouse sat across from her in a chair and I sat next to him. Sam looked up from her phone confusedly, like she didn't understand why we were looking at her. My husband recommended discussing Sam's attack on Ella. Sam dropped her spoon and became defensive. She started talking, but my husband held up his hand and urged her to listen. I told Sam that Sam's attack on Ella constituted abuse, not sibling rivalry. Sam's eyes widened as she continued. We were dramatic. My husband said, no, we weren't being dramatic at all. Sam had spent 4 years trying to erase her sister, deceived everyone, and snatched Ella. Sam cried and apologized for upsetting Ella repeatedly. Her voice shook and she couldn't say what she was sorry for. My husband stepped forward and told her that wasn't enough. I called the family therapist number Mrs. Thompson gave me and Grace Turner answered. I described who I was and why I was calling, and my voice broke midway. After thanking Grace, I hung up and stared at my phone. I walked down the hall to tell my husband about the appointment while he worked in his office. He rarely looked up from his computer. My husband thought we should have seen something was wrong. But I said Sam was good at hiding it, and we didn't. He said we should have been home more, but I maintained we worked equally. House tension made breathing difficult. I might cry while doing laundry or making coffee. Ella hardly spoke at dinners, stopped inviting us to school events, and we felt her anxiety attacks were teenage stress. We failed her. Sam's college wrote 3 days later. I opened the admissions office letter on the driveway, feeling apprehensive. Sam's registration was delayed 1 year, and her entrance would be revisited if she improved and completed community service. They questioned her character and maturity. I silently handed Sam the letter in her room. She read it, turning white, then blamed Ella for wrecking her life. My wrath shook me. I told Sam Ella didn't hurt anything. Sam destroyed it by lying and manipulating everyone for 4 years. Sam cried again and said it wasn't fair. I showed my spouse the letter upstairs. He told her she was lucky the college didn't reject her and that she'd spend the year at home making atonement and learning morality. Sam flung the letter on the floor and yelled, "We opposed." My husband talked quietly, but was upset when he informed Sam she had to face her decision's repercussions. Sam wanted to go to college and start again, but she stayed here to deal with it. On Thursday, Grace Turner, perhaps in her 50s with gray hair and a lovely face, introduced herself and inquired where Ella was. Grace nodded and invited us into her therapy office, which had a couch, seats, and a corner desk. Ella stayed with my sister and didn't want to come with Sam. Grace stared at the three of us and said Mrs. Thompson had provided her background but wanted to hear from us. Sam stated everyone was exaggerating as my husband narrated what happened. Grace held up her hand and told Sam she'd talk later. Grace took notes and asked questions. She stopped writing after 20 minutes and said she needed to be honest. She said family therapy with us right now would be harmful because Ella needed security and control. Being forced into a room with Sam could worsen things. Grace suggested starting with solo sessions for my husband and I and each kid, then family sessions when everyone was ready, stressing Ella's healing. Sam objected, but Grace glanced at her and said no. Sam followed Ella's instructions to restore her sister-sister relationship. Grace questioned us about our work schedules, weekly hours, meal frequency, and comprehension of the kids' everyday life at our Grace parent visit the following Tuesday. My husband and I traveled silently. Grace inquired how we ignored 4 years of relentless maltreatment at home. My husband cried and put his head in his hands. I told Grace we were too career-focused because Sam's responsibility made us think the girls were okay, and Ella was a gloomy teen. Grace didn't blame us, but she advised family commitments. Grace stated Ella needed substantial change from us. Words fell short. We had to demonstrate her by our actions that we picked her and were present. My husband agreed fast. I hesitated because of money, but I agreed. No. We agreed when Grace asked whether we knew Ella's trust restoration would take months or years and if we faulted each other. My husband and I gazed at each other and I acknowledged we fought regularly. Grace said it was natural but we should work through it together. Grace saw Sam alone the next day after my spouse and I waited an hour in the lobby. Grace suggested us to return without Sam after the session. I was overwhelmed by all the therapy we required. Grace sat down and told Sam he had adoption-related attachment issues and abandonment phobia. Adoptees often feel uneasy in their homes. Requested Reds is on Spotify. Ella's biological birth verified Sam's deepest fear that we didn't need her, therefore she tried to terminate our love rivalry. Grace added that this doesn't condone Sam's behavior but explains the psychology. Grace suggested Sam see Grace's husband, Lucas Turner, an adoption psychologist, for adoption trauma treatment. Grace stated she was still thinking about it. My husband asked Grace how long empathy takes. Grace said, "Maybe years." This was difficult to solve. We left with solutions but overwhelmed. Ella saw Grace alone 2 days later. My sister drove her and waited while they talked. Grace invited us to come in without Ella. Grace seemed serious when we sat down. She stated Ella's session demonstrated the complete harm. Ella dreamed of being sent away practically every. Grace said Ella has long-term psychological scars and will take time to recover. We prioritized her safety before Sam's. We couldn't compel Ella to forgive or move on until she was ready, so whenever their needs conflicted, we picked Ella over Sam. My husband agreed immediately. I didn't want to abandon Sam, but Grace was right. She recognized my anxiety and offered couples counseling to balance Ella's recovery with supporting both girls. I called a couples therapist that week. My sister took Ella home for supervision Saturday afternoon. Sam grumbled but didn't argue when my husband told her to stay in her room until Ella departed. He closed her door and came downstairs. Ella arrived impatiently. Ella said, "Okay." When my husband asked about school and her classmates in the living room. We watched a light movie and Ella laughed at a joke on the couch. My sister smiled at me. Ella seemed calmer than in years, not guarding the door or scared of every sound. She was pleased in her home, despite her tension. Ella brought a book from upstairs after the movie and peered at me from the door before asking to live with my sister. I struggled to speak. Ella consented and left with my sister. They drove away as my husband and I looked from the doorway. He hugged me and I leaned on him. We stood motionless. Sam started working with Lucas Turner the week after. Lucas was younger than expected and grinned freely when we visited his shop in Grace's building. He begged seating to mention that Sam had internalized the idea that adoption made her replaceable. Lucas said Sam wanted to make Ella invisible to decrease competition. Without Ella, Sam couldn't be replaced. Lucas labeled this a trauma response rooted in concern about her family position. My spouse inquired if Sam was culpable for her acts. Lucas stated intellectual awareness was beginning, but emotional understanding would take longer. Trauma drove Sam to hurt her sister daily for 4 years, but it didn't justify her acts. This explanation satisfied my spouse, who wanted us to feel sorry for Sam and forget Ella. Grace and Lucas discussed both women and made recommendations next week. Lucas advised Sam to accept responsibility for her behavior and overcome her trauma. Grace advised us to set new family boundaries immediately. Sam required a part-time job and community service to learn responsibility and constructive contribution, so my husband and I decreased our work hours to be home more. Ella chose when and how to interact with Sam. I read and agreed to Grace's written rules and expectations. Sam and I examined them that night. She crossed her arms. After we finished, she said unjust. My husband sounded harsh and warned her she would suffer consequences, not punishment. Sam didn't see the difference. My husband told Sam she had to apologize and prove herself trustworthy after injuring her sister. Sam shouted and said everyone was making her a villain, but he told her she shouldn't be surprised after 4 years of villainy. Sam thought she was the victim and that Ella picked everything without her involvement. My spouse told her that was the plan, and that Ella's needs came first. Sam must accept that. The next morning, I received 17 family group chat text messages. Aunt. Adopted kids have trauma, and we should understand her fear. Cousin. Trauma doesn't excuse years of maltreatment. Another aunt said Ella was dramatic and siblings fought often. My uncle called Sam manipulative and claimed we should have recognized indications. Family fighting continued all day. My husband's brother told him that we failed both girls by working too much. My mother called to say half the family believed we were overreacting and half thought we were poor parents. I shut off my phone at night because I couldn't stand non-victim perspectives. My husband and I decided at the kitchen table to separate ourselves from extended family throughout therapy. We needed it, but it was lonely. 3 days later, my sister called to say Ella wanted to return but had conditions. She wanted Sam to stay in her room while we watched. She wanted the right to leave immediately if uncomfortable, and she needed safety measures. My husband and I agreed. That Friday, my sister brought Ella home for a trial weekend. My sister watched Ella all weekend to safeguard her. On Saturday morning, Sam walked downstairs with a granola bar from the kitchen and returned upstairs silently. Ella tensed. After Ella requested a new inside-only bedroom door lock one Sunday morning, my husband drove to the hardware shop and spent an hour installing it. My sister hugged Ella and praised her bravery after she tested it 3 times and threatened to move in permanently if the lock and constraints didn't change. Ella closed her door after my sister left, and I heard her crying through the walls. Grace organized our first combined family therapy appointment for Monday morning the following week and explained over the phone for 30 minutes that Ella would tell her tale and Sam would listen without fighting or apologizing. We drove silently to Grace's office on session day, where the waiting area had nice chairs and landscape paintings, but my hands shook. Grace sat us in a circle. Ella read from her documentation notebook when asked about her experiences. Samantha detailed her initial proclamation that she was an only child, and how Sam locked her out of a family activity. Grace stopped Sam from crying after 5 minutes of reading and told Ella to speak. Ella read for 20 minutes, and I sobbed too. When Sam learned Ella was harmed, Grace pressed her to clarify. Grace stopped Sam from saying she didn't mean things to go that bad, stressing she didn't ask for it. This 90-minute session was the worst hour and a half of my life. Sam fell against our car in the parking lot, weeping that everyone hated her and her life was ended. My husband and I waited there, wondering how to console Ella, while Rodrigo left to talk to Sam alone. Ella looked ahead without saying while I held her hand. Through the windshield, I noticed Rodrigo and Sam talking quietly on the curb. After 15 minutes, my husband started crying, and I realized I'd never seen him cry. He felt he had failed his children in different ways. We drove home silently after Sam was red-eyed but stopped crying as Rodrigo led her to the car. That night, my husband and I hugged in bed, emotionally weary and unsure of how to go. 2 weeks later, Sam went home crying from her part-time work at a nearby restaurant, alleging the management was unfair and out for her. She said she did everything right but was punished for unjustifiable things. My spouse called the restaurant and she was told Sam was late for her shifts, insulted customers, and blamed other servers for lost orders. Sam ignored the warnings. After thanking her, my husband hung up and ordered Sam to work fast since we'd ceased supporting her victimhood. Sam argued, but my husband shouted to stop making excuses and own her actions and attitude. Ella started summer school the following week to make up for missing opportunities. She picked creative writing and painting classes in 2 little classrooms with teachers who knew her situation. Her art teacher wrote home after the first week saying she was bright and engaged. She engaged gladly and did well. The creative writing teacher called to tell Ella had written a beautiful personal essay and sought permission to put it in a contest. I consented and felt delighted watching Ella bloom with support. I was heartbroken we hadn't witnessed her struggle earlier. For 4 years we missed all the symptoms of her home anxiety holding her back, but seeing her grow now showed it. The next week, Sam made a breakthrough in therapy. Rodrigo questioned her whether she knew she was doing something wrong to understand her motivation and fear. Sam was quiet for a while before answering yes. She recognized it was dreadful but couldn't stop because she was afraid of losing us. She said we always imagined we would love Ella more since she was our biological child. She believed she could only protect her family by making Ella invisible. Sam sobbed and said she understood but couldn't solve it. Rodrigo listened and explained her how her nervousness eliminated competition and made us mistrust her honesty. Grace brought restorative justice to our next therapy appointment and told Sam to apologize to Ella meaningfully. Grace prepared in her office as we waited. Rodrigo informed her that comprehending was the first step, but mending it would take time. Sam wrote letters of apology to everyone she lied about Ella, returned all stolen goods and money, and helped Ella repair her relationships with estranged relatives while folding her arms and listening. When Grace asked if she understood, she nodded but showed she was doing it because she had to. Sam shrugged and answered, "No." My spouse grabbed my hand. We knew it would take time. Sam texted Mama about the ancestral necklace first. After she gave it to us to send, I read it before sealing the envelope. Sam admitted to stealing the necklace and lying about it. She apologized for preventing my mother from dating Ella and returned it immediately. 2 days later, Mom called me crying in the kitchen and apologized for her parenting mistakes. She wanted Ella to recuperate, so she gave her a grandmother-granddaughter vacation, a full weekend alone with them. When I told Ella she could try, she bit her lip and looked confused. Did she have to leave? I reminded her. After some thought, she agreed. I was glad at least one family relationship was healing. The following week my husband and I began couples therapy with another couple. In our first visit, we sat opposite couch ends. "What brought us in?" said the therapist. The spouse blamed me for not seeing the girls, and I blamed him. The therapist listened and showed us we'd failed our children by choosing work over family and ignoring warnings. We started weekly date nights on Friday, examined our feelings daily, even for 5 minutes, and stopped ignoring each other. My spouse grabbed my hand across the couch. Sam started working at a nearby grocery store as a midnight bagger. She complained about boredom the first week, but she stopped by the second. Her manager contacted at month's end to tell Sam was doing well. She arrived on time and treated customers well. Sam looked at her first paycheck at the kitchen table, proud. The majority went into her savings account and the remainder went for Ella's painting supplies, which she had wanted for months. Once Sam dropped the gift on her desk with a "sorry" note, Ella greeted him heartily but sounded flat and returned the goods to her room. Grace advised Ella tell Sam how the 4 years had affected her in our next family therapy meeting. Ella leaned forward in her chair and told Sam about her nightmares and panic attacks. She felt worthless at home and feared daily expulsion. Ella said she felt insignificant. Sam listened patiently, not interrupting, apologizing, or defending herself. Ella ended gently. Samantha said, "I'm sorry." We invited Ella's schoolmates and supportive family to her 17th birthday party the next weekend and adorned the living space with streamers and balloons in her favorite colors. Grace remarked Sam had never been so accountable in a brief but meaningful period. Sam set her dinner table, brought drinks, and hung the banner over the entrance without being asked. At the celebration, she didn't talk or promote herself. She just helped. After unwrapping a gift from my sister late in the celebration, Ella grinned and looked at Sam, who smiled back. My spouse grabbed my arm and we felt like we'd seen something impossible. Rodrigo requested a meeting without the girls and we met in his office Tuesday afternoon. He told us Sam was learning something vital. Our love was enough for both daughters, but she couldn't accept it emotionally. Rodriguez looked at us carefully and predicted years, possibly decades, of treatment for Sam to grasp the concept. Some adoption trauma takes a lifetime to repair. Ella desired ice cream with Sam Thursday night while I prepared. No parents. I nearly dropped my knife. Ella nervously shifted weight as she wanted to talk to Sam alone. We informed her we supported her choices, and Sam drove away in Sam's car. Sam entered the kitchen and reported their chat without explanation. She appeared exhausted but undefended, with sunk shoulders and red, sobbing eyes. I felt they were getting closer. Grace suggested we write a family purpose statement for our next family therapy meeting. I recommended honesty, husband showed respect, Ella wanted to accommodate everyone, and Sam talked. Ella contemplated her. They typed it when she nodded and said, "Okay." Grace helped us form exact words. We printed and framed a whole page of pledges that weekend. Grace said it reminded us of our resolve to change and might be utilized when things became tough. On Friday, my spouse received news from work. My employer offered me a promotion, which entailed more hours and frequent travel but promised a substantial rise and better benefits. At supper, my husband said he would decline and tell his supervisor the next day that his family needed him now, delay promotion. Upon hearing his choice, I cried. We finally prioritized family, so we celebrated with takeout and a movie. Sam appeared to understand, thanking Dad gently before bed. It seemed like we were all on the same page for the first time in years. 2 weeks previously, the college admissions office had emailed that they would reconsider Sam's enrollment if she wrote a personal statement on her learning. We met in the living room on a Saturday afternoon to discuss her college plans. For a month, Sam sat on the couch with a notepad in her lap, working on the essay with Rodrigo. Ella was at her friend's house. Sam opened the journal and started reading. Her voice shook at first, but stabilized as she wrote about her horror that caused her to kill. My spouse and I stared at one another when she completed reading about her treatment and community service that taught her accountability in times she hurt her sister. My husband nodded when I told Sam the essay was nice, showing comprehension. Sam closed the notepad and inquired if the college would accept it. Ella smiled when she entered the kitchen where I was cooking on her first day of junior year with her knapsack over one shoulder, left it by the stairs and joined the debate club and school newspaper. Ella continued weekly treatment and managed her anxiety, which created stiff shoulders and fast breathing when agitated. My husband pulled Ella's file at his office the Tuesday after Mr. Collins phoned me to review Ella's development 2 weeks into school. Ella's improvement shocked him. Her teachers stated she participated in class discussions and did well. She volunteered for Mental Health Awareness Week. Mr. Collins thought Ella's sympathies and experiences would make her a good psychologist. Sam shakenly took his college letter from the mailbox in early October and brought it inside. She gazed at the mail in the kitchen before opening it. My husband and I waited. She tore it open and read softly. Tearful, she looked up. She was accepted for spring semester re-enrollment and could start in January with therapy. Sam agreed while reviewing the rules. Do anything they want, she said. To celebrate, we got pizza that night. Sam watched Ella across the table, worried but excited. Ella looked, thought, and said all right after dropping her pizza piece. She suggested they talk monthly if Sam wanted. Sam beamed. I observed as growing up as sisters became harder, but more authentic. In late October, my mother called to organize the first family gathering since graduation. I was frightened, but I tried forwarding at my mother's house on Sunday afternoon with most of the extended family. Sam stayed nearby and Ella took my hand. My aunt arrived first. I noticed my mother's serious back porch conversation with Ella after lunch. Uncle told Sam about college plans and was glad she was trying to fix things. After returning inside, Ella's eyes were red but she appeared lighter. My mother subsequently regretted not being more engaged with Ella, claiming she'd judged our parenting too quickly without supporting her. Sam had multiple midday relatives visits. Some family members stayed away. People tried, but some issues were hard. Leaving looked like progress. Our treatment appointment the following week was odd. Grace placed us in circles and asked us to share one lesson from everything that happened. Ella said she learned to speak and set limits since silence nearly destroyed her. Sam spoke next. She whispered, "Fear and insecurity can injure your loved ones," she understood. She tried to reduce the rivalry to avoid losing us. Healthy families didn't fight for affection. I came last. I said our family was stronger than I expected, even broken. He spent years chasing promotions and higher pay while disregarding his family. He discovered his girls valued his care over money. Grace nods. She stated those insights showed growth and reminded us that knowing wasn't healing. We still had work. Sam gave me papers mid-November and requested me to read a 6-page letter to Ella about how she wounded her by deleting the art exhibit email, stealing the heritage necklace, and locking her outside at the family reunion. Sam wrote about each situation and what she would have done differently, acknowledging the pain and choice of each action. She signed off by saying she understood if Ella never forgave her. She wrote this not to ask for forgiveness, but because Ella deserved to know someone remembered and acknowledged her wrong. Ella found the note on her desk before bed and returned downstairs with red eyes an hour later, so we knew it meant something to her. Sarah returned the letter upstairs and put it in her nightstand drawer. She folded and kept it tenderly. December brought new family traditions. Every Sunday dinner we discussed our week's highlights. Sunday dinners were tense with extended silences. There were no family diary entries for days until Sam thanked Ella for video conferencing. Ella visited a museum in December and Sam proposed ice skating in January. We joked more and had less dark silences. I entered the living room on Thursday night to find Ella and Sam on the couch laughing. Ella's phone flashed outdated photos. Sam pointed at one and talked about a childhood holiday. Ella giggled. They remembered a funny moment before things went bad. I cried and went to the back porch. Minutes later, my spouse hugged me and asked if I was okay. I nodded and told him what I witnessed, bringing me close. We stood together, knowing we were experiencing something unexpected, our girls reconnecting. Our last family therapy visit 4 months after the graduation party, Grace sat across from us with notes praising our work and identifying changes. Sam taking responsibility, Ella speaking out, and my husband and I being more present. Grace reported great progress, reminding us that healing is a process, setbacks are inevitable, and honesty and effort are necessary. She offered individual treatment for both kids and couples counseling for my husband and me, but she was shifting us from intense family therapy to monthly check-ins. She thought we could handle more sessions on our own, but we could call. We thanked her. Grace laughed when Sam wondered if she failed us by not repairing everything. Families are fixed, living systems evolved. Our health improved. That counted. Sam left for college early on January 15th. The week before, she packed and sat on Ella's bed one afternoon. Sam was scared about leaving and didn't want their relationship to stop again. Ella agreed to talk. Ella spent hours in her room that night. After supper, she brought a newspaper-wrapped box down to Sam, who looked surprised. Sam gingerly opened it and found a care package with snacks, blanket, family photos, and a good luck message. Sam looked at the photos with tears in her eyes and trembled as she whispered, "Thank you." Ella uncomfortably held her, but it was heartfelt. I looked across the kitchen doorway at my husband. Our last night with Sam went faster than imagined. We watched a new comedy on the couch with popcorn and Ella in the midst, presumably on purpose. Her legs wrapped under her, she watched the movie silently for 20 minutes, giggling when anything humorous happened. Sound filled the living room for the first time in years. Midway through the movie, Sam gives the couch cushion palm up near Ella's knee. Ella looks down and pauses before attaching her fingers to Sam's. The girls stayed that way throughout the film. I saw my husband crying when I peeked over their heads. He nodded and said we didn't need to discuss. We left early on Saturday morning for Sam's college, 4 hours away. Ella rode with me while Sam sat in the back with boxes and bags. My husband drove and played music without complaint. Sam and Ella got pancakes and waffles at a diner halfway there for lunch, playfully arguing over which was better. As the elevator broke, we lugged everything up 3 flights of steps to Sam's modest room with 2 beds, 2 desks, and a quad-view window. We unpacked on the window bed as her roommate hadn't arrived. Ella strung string lights over the bed as Sam organized her desk. My husband built a little bookcase we bought. Sam chose the bedding I used to make the bed. Parents and roommate Jessie arrived an hour later. After asking Ella if she was Sam's sister, Sam quickly threw her arm around Ella's shoulders and replied, "Yes, this is my little sister Ella." Ella smiled brightly at Sam. I looked away and adjusted the drapes as tears fell again. That first month without Sam was strange at home. Her room was quiet, but she maintained her promise to video call Ella every Tuesday and Friday at 7 o'clock. I heard Ella's giggling. Sam remembered previous conversations and asked Ella about her day, feelings, and plans. Ella told her about school and play audition preparation. Week 3 brought Ella Sam's college sweater, cookies, and a note reading, "Thinking of you." She wore it to school the next day, and Sam posted 3 loving emoticons on her photo. My husband and I were hopeful. Ella's therapist scheduled an October parent meeting and opened Ella's file on her desk across from us in her office. Their new relationship was cautious but honest and blossoming. Ella reported a significant decline in anxiety over the past 3 months, as well as better sleep, eating, and socializing. The therapist remarked that Ella was gaining trust and believing she deserved space in her family. Ella spent years being invisible, according to the therapist. Play acting involves conscious visibility, a big step. We drove home and called Ella that night. She was scared but wanted to try. We pushed her to audition and offered to attend every show if cast. She practiced her monologue in the living room while we watched. Her voice shook but got stronger. Ella came home from auditions the following week reporting she'd played the lead character's best friend in 4 scenes and 15 lines. Her husband spun her. Sam raved. Since August, weekly couples therapy on Thursday afternoons had paid off. Our therapist encouraged us to evaluate how the disaster had affected our marriage. My spouse talked first and said he was closer to me than in years. After my husband declined the promotion, I delegated more at work and stopped bringing documents home on weekends. Our daughter's life was known from family dinners and school festivities. The therapist nodded and said our partnership had grown. Her next question was harder. Could we forgive ourselves for missed years? My husband cried. I took his hand and told him we couldn't erase the past, but we could change the future. He nodded and gripped my hand. The therapist stated rehabilitation wasn't linear. Bad days were unavoidable, but commitment to change was crucial. Thanksgiving morning was bright and crisp. Ella helped Sam take her things home the night before. The house was packed again, but pleasantly so. Sam made mashed potatoes and Ella made green bean casserole. My husband cooked the turkey. My spouse suggested we take turns sharing our gratitude. Sam said she was grateful for second chances and a family that didn't give up on her even though she didn't deserve it. Ella thanked us for her voice and space, and my husband thanked us for our family and ability to change. I was glad for them all and for being honest. After dinner, Ella and Sam played board games in the living room and won 2 of 3. They chatted and laughed about a vacation from years ago. As everyone prepared for bed, I looked at my family in the hallway. We weren't cured and may never be. Our tale will always include those 4 years of grief, but we tried and chose each other daily. That delighted me now. Despite their ineffectiveness, I like serious stories. Room. Sam looked at the photos with tears in her eyes and trembled as she whispered, "Thank you." Ella uncomfortably held her, but it was heartfelt. I looked across the kitchen doorway at my husband. Our last night with Sam went faster than imagined. We watched a new comedy on the couch with popcorn and Ella in the midst, presumably on purpose. Her legs wrapped under her, she watched the movie silently for 20 minutes, giggling when anything humorous happened. Sound filled the living room for the first time in years. Midway through the movie, Sam gives the couch cushion palm up near Ella's knee. Ella looks down and pauses before attaching her fingers to Sam's. The girls stayed that way throughout the film. I saw my husband crying when I peeked over their heads. He nodded and said we didn't need to discuss. We left early on Saturday morning for Sam's college, 4 hours away. Ella rode with me while Sam sat in the back with boxes and bags. My husband drove and played music without complaint. Sam and Ella got pancakes and waffles at a diner halfway there for lunch, playfully arguing over which was better. As the elevator broke, we lugged everything up 3 flights of steps to Sam's modest room with 2 beds, 2 desks, and a quad-view window. We unpacked on the window bed as her roommate hadn't arrived. Ella strung string lights over the bed as Sam organized her desk. My husband built a little bookcase we bought. Sam chose the bedding I used to make the bed. Parents and roommate Jessie arrived an hour later. After asking Ella if she was Sam's sister, Sam quickly threw her arm around Ella's shoulders and replied, "Yes, this is my little sister Ella." Ella smiled brightly at Sam. I looked away and adjusted the drapes as tears fell again. That first month without Sam was strange at home. Her room was quiet, but she maintained her promise to video call Ella every Tuesday and Friday at 7 o'clock. I heard Ella's giggling. Sam remembered previous conversations and asked Ella about her day, feelings, and plans. Ella told her about school and play audition preparation. Week 3 brought Ella Sam's college sweater, cookies, and a note reading, "Thinking of you." She wore it to school the next day, and Sam posted 3 loving emoticons on her photo. My husband and I were hopeful. Ella's therapist scheduled an October parent meeting and opened Ella's file on her desk across from us in her office. Their new relationship was cautious but honest and blossoming. Ella reported a significant decline in anxiety over the past 3 months, as well as better sleep, eating, and socializing. The therapist remarked that Ella was gaining trust and believing she deserved space in her family. Ella spent years being invisible, according to the therapist. Play acting involves conscious visibility, a big step. We drove home and called Ella that night. She was scared but wanted to try. We pushed her to audition and offered to attend every show if cast. She practiced her monologue in the living room while we watched. Her voice shook but got stronger. Ella came home from auditions the following week reporting she'd played the lead character's best friend in 4 scenes and 15 lines. Her husband spun her. Sam raved. Since August, weekly couples therapy on Thursday afternoons had paid off. Our therapist encouraged us to evaluate how the disaster had affected our marriage. My spouse talked first and said he was closer to me than in years. After my husband declined the promotion, I delegated more at work and stopped bringing documents home on weekends. Our daughter's life was known from family dinners and school festivities. The therapist nodded and said our partnership had grown. Her next question was harder. Could we forgive ourselves for missed years? My husband cried. I took his hand and told him we couldn't erase the past, but we could change the future. He nodded and gripped my hand. The therapist stated rehabilitation wasn't linear, bad days were unavoidable, but commitment to change was crucial. Thanksgiving morning was bright and crisp. Ella helped Sam take her things home the night before. The house was packed again, but pleasantly so. Sam made mashed potatoes and Ella made green bean casserole. My husband cooked the turkey. My spouse suggested we take turns sharing our gratitude. Sam said she was grateful for second chances and a family that didn't give up on her even though she didn't deserve it. Ella thanked us for her voice and space, and my husband thanked us for our family and ability to change. I was glad for them all and for being honest. After dinner, Ella and Sam played board games in the living room and won 2 of 3. They chatted and laughed about a vacation from years ago. As everyone prepared for bed, I looked at my family in the hallway. We weren't cured, and may never be. Our tale will always include those 4 years of grief, but we tried and chose each other daily. That delighted me now. Despite their ineffectiveness, I like serious stories.